Hey now, my name is Nick from Board Game Brawl, and I am here, top button, done button, for another episode of Board Game Basics. This is a series of videos designed to help people who are new to the hobby understanding the different terminology and concepts, and also to offer some different tips and advice in order to help you make the most out of your new gaming addiction. So, today we're going to take a look at a very popular mechanic that's used in a wide variety of games, especially Euro games, and that is worker placement. The idea of worker placement is very simple. Each player in the game, whichever game it happens to be, is going to have some sort of token or pawn that represents a worker. That's sort of the general term, although depending on what the game is and what the theme is, that worker may be called something different. But the concept is the same. You're taking this little worker, pawn, or token, and you're putting it out on the game board somewhere. There will be different spots on the game board that are delineated away from the other spots on the board, and that spot is going to do something different for you if you put your worker there. It might give you a resource. It might give you some sort of different good that you can then use for something different in the game. It might give you money. It might give you the ability to do an action that you wouldn't normally be able to do unless you put your worker there. Sometimes you're simply going to a spot in order to prevent someone else from taking it, because in a lot of these different types of worker placement games, when you have your worker on a spot, no one else can put their worker there until you vacate. So there's a lot of different decision making to be had about when you're going to put a worker on a certain spot in order for someone else to not get it, or before someone else snatches it away from you. A lot of games will also require that you all take your workers back, because you'll have a limited supply of these workers. It will require that you all take your workers back at a certain time, while other games require you to make the decision of when you recall all of your workers, which is another sort of important decision you have to make in order to best make use of the game and meet whatever the victory condition is, whether it's getting a certain amount of points or getting the most points over the other players, because by taking all of your workers back, you're opening up all those spots for other people to take, but you're also setting yourself up for better and future turns rather than stagnating without having any of your workers. That's just the general gist of what a worker placement game is, and there have been a number of games, like I said, especially Euro games, that have used this mechanic over the years. Now, one of the most popular ones, and what I think some people would call sort of the progenitor of the worker placement mechanic, at least as we know it today, is called Caelus. This is a very, very popular Euro game that is basically about taking this village of Caelus and raising it up and making a huge castle in it, and all the different players vying to be the one who basically builds up the castle the best. Now, many people have complained that the theme of Caelus is very, very dry, but most people, even those people, will agree that it is a very well-designed game that has certainly earned its popularity because of these well-designed worker placement mechanics. Now, another game that is often compared to Caelus as sort of an easier version of Caelus with a little more theme is called Lords of Waterdeep, which came out a couple of years ago from Wizards of the Coast. And it has that same worker placement mechanic, a little simpler, not as many different details, and also a little bit faster, but also has the Dungeons and Dragons theme on top of it. Not that you're actually going out through a dungeon and killing dragons and getting treasure, but that you are a lord of this city of Waterdeep who is sending out agents, which are your workers. Your worker pawns in this case are your agents that you send out throughout the city in order to gather different adventurers, warriors, rogues, clerics, and wizards to go out and complete these missions for you, and therefore earn you victory points and prestige. You get money, all types of different things, all because you're putting your workers out. You can even make more buildings in order to have more spots to put your workers, which is a very interesting mechanic. Now, even Lords of Waterdeep doesn't have much theme to it. It's more about the mechanics and being well designed. As time has gone on, more and more worker placement games are having a much stronger theme. This is sort of blending and blurring the lines, as I've talked about in one of my previous videos, between both Euro games and Ameritrash games, having a great amount of theme and having more player interaction and things like that. One of the great examples of this is the Manhattan Project, which has a very different theme than the previous two games that I mentioned. In the Manhattan Project, each of the players, this takes place in the 40s, represented a different nation who is trying to be the first to build the atomic bomb, to build more atomic bombs than the other players, each one being worth points. Your workers, in this case, are little tokens that are actually engineers and scientists and construction workers who are actually going to build the different buildings that you need to do and research the different types of resources like uranium and plutonium, and also also, of course, get money, all in order to make these bombs. There's interaction in the sense that you can actually send out fighter planes to bomb your opponent's factories. So this is one of those games that's sort of treading that line between Euro game and Ameritrash game. Another really good example of this is Euphoria, Build a Better Dystopia, where it takes place in a post-apocalyptic future where you are one of the worker drones controlled by this despotic government who has sort of awoken, and now you're making a play for power, either for the good of the people or for the ill of the people. And your workers in this game are actually dice, and you have to roll these dice every time that you recall your workers and want to summon them back to the board. And the numbers on the dice actually represent the knowledge of the workers. You want to keep your workers stupid in this game, so to speak. So these are a lot of different thematic elements to all of these different games, and so you're going to see this more and more going on as worker placement gets integrated into more and more games, sometimes in a small way. For instance, the game Lewis and Clark, which recently came out at the Essen Game Festival and is making it to North America. The main part of that game is actually card play and hand management, a little bit of hand building by taking cards, which is something we'll cover in another game, but there is some small amount of worker placement in the game as well, so I believe you'll see more of that as well. Well, that's about it for worker placement. Let's go ahead and I'll show you some of just little snippets of different worker placement games aside from the ones that I mentioned. Then we're going to come back and I'll give you my final thoughts. Well, I hope you're a little more enlightened as to what worker placement is now. So if you see that term, or if someone says, hey, we're going to play a game, it's a worker placement game, you don't just scratch your head and wonder what that means, because I know that I was in that position at one point, and that's kind of why I make these videos. So you don't have to go through that. So when someone says that to you, you can act like an informed board gamer and know exactly what's up and what to play. I think you're going to see more and more thematic worker placement games that have a wide variety of different themes that are going to interest you, and I think it's a fun mechanic that you should definitely check out. My name is Nick from Board Game Brawl. This has been another episode of Board Game Basics, and remember, in order to brawl, you gotta know the basics. Take care.